I'm Howard Brodsky, and I'm co-founder and chairman of CCA Global Partners, a purchasing co-op in North America. And I'm also the founder and chairman of Principal Six Cooperative and the founder of Cooperatives for a Better World.
So what does Principle 6 do, Howard?
Principal Six is really the first co-op that's going to be owned by globally as a co-op of co-ops that will bring scale to co-ops both in technology, best practices, and also in collaboration. Um, and I know this just you're going to edit. Um, the co-op that I spent most of my life on is CCA Global Partners, and I'll talk about that maybe just a little, just so you can know what that's about. Okay, so. And I'll give you and I know you can edit, do whatever you want, but sort of why. I think it's always important to understand why somebody does something. Um, and so my father was actually born in and raised at an early age in Ukraine. Um, and he came to the United States at the age of 14. And it was his dream to own a family business. And when I was 6 years old, he started a very small floor covering business in the United States. It was very small, and I saw the pride he had, and it was his love of his life. And he got cancer when I was very young, when I was 11, and died when I was just turned 13. And um, I knew then that's what I wanted to do, was take over this family business, even though it was a two-person business. And when I took it over after college, it grew quite a bit, but I realized that independent family businesses need scale, and without scale, we're not going to be competitive. And with a dear friend of mine, started um, CCA Global Partners now 40 years ago, um, and we realized that the strength of the co-op was nothing to do with any one sector. It was really about bringing scale to family businesses, um, and helping save family businesses in North America. And so CCA has grown quite remarkably, and has serves over 700,000 family businesses now. And we also have a childcare division, CCA for Social Good, where we service 39,000 childcare centers and 1.5 million children every day. And we deliver food at better cost with the child cares. We do classroom. We do help with training of the teachers. And at CCA, really at the heart of what we do is give family businesses scale by doing the buying and the merchandising and the training. And because I do believe that family businesses are the core of our society. And it doesn't matter whether the United States or England or, in Nairobi, um, it's local family businesses at the heart of our communities. And they can't survive on their own because we live in a world where everybody needs scale for technology, scale for buying. And cooperatives are probably the one unique way that you can have scale without losing independence.
That's a good answer, Howard, because I was
Mhm.
going to ask, you can get a lot of family businesses that are still private. So why did you choose the cooperative model for this? But I think you just answered my question.
Right. Yeah, because I think they don't want to give up their autonomy,
Mm,
but they need to work together in a way that is collective wisdom and collective strength without giving up autonomy. And cooperatives are the unique way to do that because they own it.
mm.
And ownership matters, but you need scale today, and it's increasingly even more important. Um, but these family businesses are really the core of and heart of our society around the world, globally, and they make up. It's interesting. Small family businesses make up 96% of all businesses in the world.
Mm.
Not, and so when you look at that, you say what they need is the strength of working together, um, in a way that gives them the scale to compete with larger companies.
Can you give an example of some of these small family businesses and how being a cooperative has really impacted them?
Sure. I mean, we have a bike stores, sports stores that are part of it, I think. And really, by providing, um, we provide financing for their customers, credit insurance for them to buy insurance cheaper, buying so they can buy their products at the same competitive price as multi-billion dollar companies. Um, and generally, our members of our cooperatives have done better than the large national companies in market share, which is quite, and quite a tribute. And, the most rewarding thing for me is when a family business says, I would never be able to be in business or succeed without the co-op. I would never be able to grow or survive, and my kids wouldn't have come into the business because they didn't see a future, and they now see a future.
Must be such a special thing to hear, like given where it came from and that genesis of what you've done.
Yeah, no, it is, and that's why I think eh, my passion is cooperatives.
I
It's
think
not
that
a
comes across really
it's
clearly. It's
it's a
great.
mission, and because I see all the good it does. I mean, all the good, and we live in a world that where the bigger getting bigger and more control, and the control is in the hands of fewer and fewer people, and the wealth is consolidated, and co-ops are probably a unique way to distribute wealth and distribute power um, without losing autonomy. And when you look at the wealth of five people in the world have half the world's wealth, the concentration can't continue like that. It's unhealthy, and we need to figure the cooperatives a few ways to how we can really impact our local communities in a way that um, gives everybody a say and a place in it.
Is that why you set up Principle Six as well?
Um, Principle six, what I really saw was um, that co-ops need scale. Even large co-ops today need more scale than they have because things are advancing so quickly with AI technology and other things, and that the co-ops, Principle six exists for on paper for co-ops of working together with other co-ops, but I think there was never a method to actually actualize that. And Principle six gives co-ops a way uh, to bring scale with each other without competing because they don't across borders even so that housing co-ops can learn from other housing co-ops and food co-ops can learn from other food co-ops and together we can do benchmarking that we could never do and data is becoming the new gold mine and we should own our own data. The data should not be owned by third parties that we're doing business with all the co-ops, and principle six will give us the ability to own our data, share best practices, benchmarking, and understand how AI technology can really leverage our capacity to be better.
So, are you working with governments already in terms of asking for support and expanding the cooperative mutual sector?
No, we have not worked with the governments yet. No, I mean, I hope that's one of the things that comes out of Doha is more presence for cooperatives in in front of governments to understand the impact. I think, one of the things, Rebecca, that I think is the saddest things in co-op is the lack of understanding and knowledge about co-ops, even among intelligent people, politicians, professional people. They have very, really little understanding of the sector. They may be understanding one part of it, something they've visited. Maybe it's a food co-op, maybe it's a credit union, but they really have a little understanding of both the scale, the current impact, and the potential impact of cooperatives. And um, I think it's really important that the co-ops have a seat at the table, the big table, I call it, of government decisions, because I think too little both funding and support goes into building and strengthening cooperative sector.
I think that that really ties in with some of the things that have been coming out of the CM50 in terms of education and in terms of the financial aspect of it as well. Um,
Right.
in your words, Howard, why did you get involved in the CM50?
To me, it was an opportunity to really network with other leaders of significant cooperatives from around the world and mutuals, and to try to understand our common needs and understand how we can learn from each other, share best practices with each other. Co-ops are a unique culture, and it's important that we work with each other and also how do we lift up the entire sector, um, and so that that everybody is getting better. And so I think it was a unique way to bring people together to increase innovation that maybe is not moving at as fast enough pace, and yet all the large corps. And I think for large corps to understand the role we have to support smaller corps around the world. We want to plant as many seeds as possible so that new co-ops can grow and co-ops that exist can grow faster. And I think CM50, I think, can be a catalyst uh, for stimulating both the growth of existing ones and planting seeds for new ones. And
Is
then
that
I
what you
think,
see? Sorry, go on.
yeah, no, no. And I think also, how do we influence policy decisions globally that could affect co-ops? And I hopefully coming out of Doha, how do we get in front of, have a seat at the table and get in front of policy decisions and understand, say, look at you, co-ops can be a better answer to you than anything you're trying to do in a way that will really bring more opportunity and equity to civilization across the world, and in a way, in a scale that no one else has the ability to do. I mean, that there's 1 billion members of already. Uh, People are shocked at that. They are shocked that it's 10% of the world's economy, and no one would ever think that.
I was going to say, do you feel like that's the ultimate aim of the group to have this?
Um,
Because it feels like that I've heard from a couple of other people as well that Doha isn't the finish line; it's the starting block. It's a
oh,
point.
I think
It's
you're
a
right,
springboard.
Rebecca. I think Doha I think, is planting more seeds in front of more people. But it's not, we now have to make sure that co-ops continue to grow. And how do we work together again? How do co-ops, the CM50 gives the ability of larger co-ops to understand how they can make a major impact globally. Um, and I think so. I think it's the beginning I agree, of many ways. It should never be an endpoint. I think it's a combination of co-ops because it's the end of the International Year of the Co-op by the United Nations. And so it's a fitting culmination in Doha to sort of celebrate that. Um, but I think it's important. How do we understand how to elevate the benefits of the cooperative world business model and have the world understand that? Um, to have them understand that how can co-ops be really of the viable business model for creating new organizations in the country. It's interesting. Co-ops generally are not political. They don't, it's not that one side or the other side says, I think that's a good thing, because co-ops generally don't need much support from government. They're self-sustaining. They're run by their members. It's sort of an idealistic place to organize for people. And yet, I think there's very little done by governments to help stimulate further growth of it.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how both CCA Global, Principle Six, and yourself see cooperatives really working towards the sustainable development goals. And then also social development because they're so intertwined. I mean, have you
Oh,
worked
they
directly
are.
in that area? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think uh, with Principle Six, part of having the sustainable goals is to have a viable local economy that's thriving for everyone. I think part of bringing more equality and more sustainability in every aspect, not just in our environment, but also our economic uh, equality and diversity. Co-ops by nature, but you know, co-ops need a lift right now, and not because they're not doing well, because they're needed more now than ever. And so, what Principle Six really is going to do is really leverage the ability of local co-ops to get better, because everybody doesn't have to learn for the first time what the best way is. Somebody in Norway might have a better idea than somebody in Canada, or vice versa. Together, they can do things. And as I said, technology now crosses borders, crosses continents. Um, Technology really is the great game changer if we leverage it right. And Principle Six, hopefully, can bring people together to leverage technology so that it works for everybody. Um, because I think we need to understand how co-ops can work together. We're on the same team, and I think nobody questions that we just haven't done it. And I think because of the um, environment we're in right now, where there's just massive consolidation, and then not only of ownership of wealth, and then also with technology now being really owned by a few and developed because of what they believe in the end use. Maybe co-ops need a little, different way of and different methods to do it. Co-ops need a seat at the table, a major seat at the table, in helping also develop these tools.
At the big table.
At the big table, you
At the
got
very
it.
big table.
We don't want to be at the kids' table.
Absolutely. Howard, you mentioned the International Year of Cooperatives. I mean, how has it been for you?
Well, I think it gives co-ops, I think it's been wonderful. It gives recognition. It also gives, frankly, a talking point for a lot of people that maybe had not understood the power of co-ops, that when they hear that United Nations is the International Year of the Co-op, it really elevates the cooperative conversation. And I think that's wonderful. And I think it made a focal point for many co-ops having events and tying it into that. And I think that's, just very, very positive, Rebecca.
And I know I've asked you this once before, but the theme for the year is the co-ops build a better world. So in
Right.
in your view, Howard, how do co-ops build a better world?
Um, I think you know, in so many ways. But I guess if I would give you a summary, I think they just build a more equitable, um, a sustainable and prosperous world, where ownership is by many, not the few, and it's shared equality and shared opportunity. I always say there's two types of poverty in our world. There's poverty of economics and there's poverty of hope. And I think cooperatives are probably the only economic model that brings both hope and economic success. Um, you know, if people just get a job, sometimes they still have no hope. And by having ownership and having a stake in the game, ownership matters. And cooperative is the one of the few structures where everybody has a say in the game and a stake in the game, and that truly matters in the long run.
I really like that, the poverty of
Mhm.
economics and the poverty of
Yeah,
hope.
and I always say, it's interesting. When people have asked me the difference between cooperatives and a corporation,
Hmm.
I've thought of a new way to think about it, Rebecca. And my thought is, and I think this is true, corporations are designed to extract value from people, and cooperatives are designed to generate value with people. And, there's a huge difference on how organizations are designed. Cooperatives are designed to really create value with people. And cooperatives are, corporations are not designed for that. That's not their basic. They're designed to bring profit to shareholders, to extract money, and the shareholders aren't the users. It could be, a technology company delivering a service, in Kenya, and it's owned by, a small group of people in California. That, you know, we need the distribution of opportunity and the creation of wealth. And um, our, the income inequality has only grown worse in the last 10 years. And it looks like it will continue to go worse. And cooperatives, um, but we need a bold vision with cooperatives. We don't, I think it's time for us now, and I hope for that. One of the things that CM50 will provide is a bold vision and a place to leapfrog now, not to move slowly, but to move fast.
There's that phrase, isn't there, that if you want to go, I'm going to get this right.
Right.
If you want to go
Yeah.
fast, go on alone. If you want to go
Loan, right.
far, go together.
Go together. That's exactly. And I think that's, I think it's true. And I think it's hopefully one of the things with Principle Six is it can have everybody go far and fast together. I
Best of
think
both worlds.
by providing strength together, by providing technology together and best practices together, we all get better.
Mm.
And Principle Six, I think, is hopefully going to be a tool owned by cooperatives. And again, the other thing with Principle Six is this is not a technology owned by third parties. Principle Six is a co-op of co-ops.
I guess my final question would be coming back to the Sustainable Development Goals, because you're right, poverty hasn't got better, it's getting worse, but alleviating poverty is one of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Right.
But they are a vision, and COPs can help achieve that vision. But we've got 5 years left of the Agenda for Sustainable Development. Where do you see the SDGs in 5 years' time? Where do you see co-ops in 5 years' time? And where do you see the CM50 in 5 years' time?
You know, um, I think the United Nations knows is probably it's a challenge right now to try to meet those goals because of all the headwinds. I think it's one of the reasons I think that the United Nations looks at cooperatives because I think without a question within our current framework, we're providing opportunity and equality to millions of people, hundreds of millions of people. Um, but to really meet the goals, that's why we need to expand our footprint. We need to have more cooperatives, reach more people to bring more opportunity and more equality, and more sustainability for our environment, more sustainability for economics. Uh, but we need to do that by really having faster growth. And so I look at that and say that's why I think Doha should be a kickoff for saying we need to now move faster together. And CM50 hopefully provides a core of that, of the global leaders saying, how do we work together to provide that infrastructure so everybody can move faster together?
Howard Brodsky, thank you so much. That was a
But thank you.
fantastic answers to some, really interesting conversation. Thank you. Is there
Uh,
anything else you think is worth saying that we haven't covered? I know it's a very short conversation.
um, no, I think I just think one of the things I think I always say, um, we level the playing field. Co-ops level the playing field. It's an uneven playing field right now with the power concentrated, the wealth concentrated, technology concentrated. Co-ops can level the playing field. And when you level the playing field, everybody has opportunity. It's amazing how well people do. If you give people a chance and the same opportunity as someone else, millions of people will do better.
I think that's a powerful place to end. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Rebecca, it was a pleasure seeing you.